Good morning. This is Northern Light for Wednesday, June 6th. I'm Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Todd Moe.
The haze from the Quebec wildfire smoke is lingering over the North Country. We check in with a Clarkson professor who's been tracking the air quality over the last few days.
If you have a sensitive respiratory system, you might want to turn on any air filtration unit that you might have in your house. Or if you don't have that and you're concerned about breathing these particles, masking can also help.
Also, a decades-long dispute over a parcel of Mohawk land in the North Country is nearing resolution. And in the final days of the legislative session, advocates for several bills to make it easier to vote in New York are feeling a mixture of hope and frustration.
If you're worried about getting a disease, you should be able to get an absentee ballot. And that matters to people with respiratory problems, chronic illnesses, and seniors.
Also on the show, Chef Curtis Hem joins us to share 2 zesty summer recipes, grilled steak tacos and elderflower margaritas.
I just love the casualness of this. I like all the leftovers. I often eat them cold the next day. So don't judge me.
All of that and more is coming up on Northern Light. Stick with us.
Broadcast of Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio is supported by Mountain Orthotic and Prosthetic Services, a full-service practice committed to providing care for patients of all ages with offices in Lake Placid, Plattsburgh, and Malone. Details and referrals at mountainOandP.com. And by Blue Seed Studios, Saranac Lake, promoting community involvement in the arts on the web at bluseedstudios.org.
This is Northern Light. I'm Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Todd Moe. A decades-long dispute over a parcel of Mohawk land in the North Country is nearing resolution. Franklin County and 2 of its towns have accepted a settlement offer from New York State in the ongoing Akwesasne land claim dispute. Kara Chapman has more.
Back in the 1820s, New York State bought what is known as the Hogansburg Triangle from the St. Regis Mohawk tribe. It's about 2,000 acres of land between Messina and Malone. In the 1980s, the tribe sued the state. The Mohawks claimed New York had illegally purchased the land since it had failed to get federal approval to do so. Last year, a federal judge agreed, but didn't specify what should happen with the land. According to Assemblyman Billy Jones' office, Franklin County and the towns of Bombay and Fort Covington had some major concerns. Those included how they would be compensated for taxes on the lost land and public services they will continue to provide for it. The 3 municipalities have now approved a settlement offer from New York State. It includes $15 million to be split between them, as well as an additional $2 million each year in perpetuity. In a statement, Franklin County Manager Donna Kissane said the county is excited to have an acceptable settlement offer from the state, but she noted it had yet to be finalized. The St. Regis Mohawk tribe welcomed news of the settlement offer, but they said a final settlement on the land claim dispute had not been reached with all parties, including the tribe. In their statement, they said there are very few issues left to be resolved, and the tribal council is confident an agreement will be reached. Kara Chapman, North Country Public Radio.
If you've been outside at all over the last few days, you've probably noticed the hazy air and the smell of smoke. There are more than 150 wildfires burning in Quebec right now, and smoke from those fires are being blown down across New York State. Health officials have been advising people to limit their time outdoors, especially children, the elderly, and people with heart or breathing problems. Clarkson professor Suresh Daniala has been tracking the wildfire smoke and its effect on air quality in the North Country. He spoke with our Adirondack reporter, Emily Russell.
So a lot of the fires in Quebec are burning hundreds of miles away. How is it possible that smoke from up there can blow this far south and feel like it's like settling right on top of us?
Yeah, I think what we're experiencing here is what people on the West Coast see all the time. Particulate matter from fires that travel hundreds and sometimes thousands of miles. And these particles, so during a fire event, you get particles of all different sizes. The biggest particles will drop closest to where the fire is, at the source of the fire. And the smaller particles, they get elevated by the hot air that's generated during the fire. And once it gets up to a little bit of an altitude, the winds can carry them a long distance. And we're talking about particulate matter right now that's largely smaller than 10 micron, and most of the particles are probably smaller than 2.5 micron. And again, so these sizes are about 1/10 the size of the width of your hair. So very, very small particles. And so they don't drop down that quickly. And so they can remain afloat in the air. And if there's winds, even just a light breeze, it's being carried out to long distances.
And why is it bad to breathe in fine particulate matter?
So particles smaller than 10 micron can be effectively transported through our upper respiratory system into our lungs. And smaller particles, especially if they're smaller than about 2.5 micron, those ones can travel the deepest to your respiratory system. They're going to be transported deep into your lungs. Many of them will remain there. Some of them you exhale back, but you're depositing a lot of these particles inside you.
Have you been changing what you do in these last few days in terms of like going outside and being outdoors?
Not me personally. I haven't made a change yet, but I know my daughter. She's asthmatic, so we told her to curtail her outdoor exercising today. But I think the numbers have gone up since this morning too. So in the evening, we'll probably take a shorter walk than we would normally do.
So you've been tracking the wildfire smoke from the campus at Clarkson and Potsdam. How have you been doing that, and what are you seeing?
So we have air quality sensors outdoor on our roof and indoor in our classrooms. And we've been monitoring outside, inside air so we can understand ventilation systems and how to optimize that on a consistent basis. With this event happening right now, what we have noticed is, of course, the outdoor air has climbed up consistently over the last 36 to 40 hours. And it's gone from, as you know, the air quality here in North Country, the air quality is exceptional. So the particulate matter numbers, which are typically measured in microgram per meter cube, is well below 10 microgram per meter cube. And now we're seeing numbers about 150 microgram per meter cube. This will compare with some of the most polluted cities in the world. And what you're seeing is, of course, we bring a lot of outdoor air indoor. That's a way to keep the indoor air safe also, so we don't have buildup of indoor pollutants. But right now, bringing in outdoor air also brings in outdoor pollutants. And so what you're seeing is that, indoor air can also be quite unhealthy.
From your research and just your understanding of climate change and the environment, do you think that a place like the Adirondack North Country is going to experience more of this kind of poor air quality from wildfires hundreds of miles away?
Yeah, that's a great question. On a regular basis out here in the North Country, our particulate matter numbers and general air quality is exceptional. And so we are well below the levels of what we need to maintain to have a healthy air. With forest fires, all bets are off because these are not pollutants that we're generating locally, and they're transported hundreds of miles and even thousands of miles. We know that we can see forest fire particles from the West Coast all the way out in the Midwest. With increasing temperatures and changing precipitation patterns, it is possible that the wildfire events will be different in terms of magnitude and frequency. So I do expect that we will have more days like these, but it's tough to control because these are not local events. They're not something that we can control by regulations. It is an air pollution problem, but it is driven by climate change and driven by policies that are different from the environmental policies that are required to manage local air pollution.
That was Clarkson professor Suresh Dhaniyala speaking with our reporter Emily Russell.
You are listening to Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio. Time is 10 minutes past 8. Good morning. I'm Todd Moe.
And I'm Monica Sandreski. Just ahead, Chef Curtis Hem shares the recipe for his favorite taco. Think Mexican street food and a margarita with elderflower liqueur and tequila. More on those recipes coming up in just a few minutes here on Northern Light.
This is music by the group Bee Children. You can check out more of their music as part of our Underscore project anytime. Visit us at ncpr.org/underscore. Northern Light is supported by St. Lawrence Health, offering MyCare, a way for patients to access health information and stay connected to their care team. Registration is available at stlawrencehealthsystem.org. And Fort de la Presentation, inviting the public to a June 17th ceremony marking the fort as a historic site, importance by the National Society Daughters of the American Colonists, fort1749.org.
The New York State legislative session ends on Friday, and advocates for different issues are pushing to get measures through in these last few days. First, supporters of a bill to let terminally ill people end their lives at the time of their choosing, known as the Medical Aid in Dying bill, say they have enough votes in the legislature to get the bill approved. Now they say they just need the Democratic leaders in the Senate and Assembly to agree to put the bill on the floor for a vote. Senate sponsor Brad Hoylman-Siegel said at a rally yesterday that he's hopeful the bill can be approved.
This is an important bill. This is a vote of conscience. I think that we will make headway, and I think you might be surprised what happens in the next few days.
Assembly Health Committee Chair Amy Paulin has sponsored the bill for 8 years after she watched her sister suffer a painful death from cancer. She wants a vote on the measure on the Assembly floor before the session ends this week.
We still have 3 days. It's the longest 3 days of our life. But we still
you can say that again.
But we have 3 days. Nothing is impossible.
Meanwhile, the bill's opponents, including some advocacy groups for people with disabilities, say they fear the measure, which they call assisted suicide, could be abused. Alex Thompson is with the New York Association of Independent Living. He says sometimes people with disabilities are misdiagnosed. He worries that could lead some to take their own lives based on an inaccurate prognosis.
One of the major issues is that it puts the lives of people with disabilities at risk, and a lot of the discussion around the issue kind of overlooks the impact on people with disabilities.
Supporters say there are safeguards in the bill to prevent that from happening.
Another issue advocates are pushing for is voting access. Advocates for several bills that would make it easier to vote in New York State are viewing the final days of the 2023 legislative session with a mixture of hope and frustration. Karen DeWitt reports.
Susan Lerner, executive director of Common Cause, says the bills include a requirement that all ballot measures be written in plain English, not the confusing legalese that often describes the initiatives. Another bill would permit voters standing in line on Election Day to receive food or water from someone else while they wait. The practice is currently illegal in New York.
Unfortunately, sometimes the lines are longer than we would like to see, and voters should be assisted and encouraged to stay online, and so providing a bottle of water, a candy bar, pizza.
She says it could help voters better endure a long wait. A third bill would make permanent a pandemic-era law that allowed voters to request absentee ballots if they were worried about catching or transmitting an illness. Blair Horner with the New York Public Interest Research Group says voters are already able to request an absentee ballot if they have a disability or a debilitating illness. The change would take into account transmissible diseases as well.
If you're worried about getting a disease, you should be able to get an absentee ballot. And that matters to people with respiratory problems, chronic illnesses, and seniors who are still in the crosshairs of COVID. COVID hasn't gone away.
Lerner with Common Cause says the bills are all common sense ideas. They've been approved in the state Senate, but so far have not advanced in the Assembly. With 3 days left in the legislative session, she's worried that they won't be considered until 2024.
I don't believe there's opposition to any of the bills that we're talking about. There just doesn't seem to be a sense of urgency. And as we know, democracy right now really needs champions and to be strengthened.
Lerner says while elections for president, Congress, and the state legislature don't occur until next year, there are plenty of local races this year, including the New York City Council and races for county sheriffs and district attorneys. She says the changes could have a positive impact there. A spokesman for Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie did not rule the bills in or out, saying they are still under consideration as the session winds down. In Albany, I'm Karen DeWitt.
The city manager of Ogdensburg is stepping down after just 3 months on the job. According to North Country Now, city manager Muhyiddin Buhari planned to stay in office until July 28th, but instead resigned yesterday. Beginning his role as the Ogdensburg city manager, he took on challenging tasks, including a lawsuit that involved the city of Ogdensburg in St. Lawrence County. The lawsuit caused tension with the police and fire unions, a budget deficit, and a citywide reassessment. Buhari says his goal as city manager was to honor his contract and create a smooth transition for the city. In the meantime, the Ogdensburg City Council is finding ways to pick up the pieces and is instating Andrea Smith as the interim city manager.
And 2 North Country Arts Centers are getting nearly $10 million in combined state funding. The Lake Placid Center for the Arts is getting $7.5 million to build a new arts complex for cultural tourism. And the Thousand Islands Arts Center is getting $2 million to put towards a new arts facility. The grants are part of Governor Hochul's effort to make art more accessible to people living in New York. According to a press release, 19 different arts and cultural organizations are receiving money from the New York State Council for the Arts.
You're listening to Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio. I'm Todd Moe.
And I'm Monica Sandreski. In just a minute, 2 recipes for your summer palate from Chef Curtis Hem. Then stick around after the show for Bird Note when we're pulling back the curtain on production of that program. That's just ahead at 8:42. But first, Todd has a look at the weather for us.
Yeah, a little earlier this half hour, we heard about the smoky conditions around the region, that haze and the smell of smoke. It's going to continue for the next few days, according to the Weather Service. Clouds and scattered showers and smoky conditions today, tonight, tomorrow. Highs this afternoon in the 60s, near 70. Light winds out of the west-northwest. Lows around 50 overnight tonight. And then actually tomorrow and Friday, some scattered showers, highs in the 60s. For the weekend at this point, about a 20% chance of scattered rain Saturday and Sunday, with highs in the low to mid-70s. Fog, areas of smoke, and 50 degrees in Canton right now.
Chef Curtis Hem joins us every month to share a favorite recipe for the season. And this month, he's prepping for the coming grilling season with 2 recipes packed with great flavors: grilled steak tacos and an elderflower margarita. Chef Curtis owns the Carriage House Cooking School in Peru, New York, and is the executive chef at the View Restaurant at the Mirror Lake Inn Resort and Spa in Lake Placid.
Yeah, he told me that his favorite taco could be made with mushrooms or chicken breasts or pork loin. He says the key flavors come from the charred onions and poblano peppers. This is street food from Mexico, he says, so avoid expensive cuts of meat.
You want something that's not a prime cut of meat. I would not do this with tenderloin of beef. I wouldn't do it with prime rib, nor would I do it with New York strip. You're looking for something that's got some flavor. You're looking for an exercised muscle. It's totally appropriate to cook this steak fully done, well done. You just want to cook it and get it to the point of kind of erosion, they call it, where the meat breaks down, the connective tissue breaks down. We're not going full-on braise here, but, you can go to the upper doneness with your steak on this one. So I look for things off the shoulder. So a good chuck steak works. You could do a hanger steak. You could do a skirt steak is absolutely wonderful flavor. And skirt any of those muscles, you either want to go very little or fully cooked. So that works. Chicken thighs are awesome on this taco, as is any kind of pork steak from the shoulder works well. So does pork tenderloin, but it's a little lean.
So you get your steak, you finish the grilling the steak, you set that aside, and then it's time to work on those peppers.
Yep, you want to rest the meat. I always tell people it's like making a very hard fist and then letting go, and if you feel the blood go back out of your fingers, that's the resting. So you're going to cook with an assertive heat to get that char and that flavor. So you want to make sure that meat can rest a bit. While it's resting, go ahead and, cook the white onions. And the white onions are truly the white onions. I like the flavor of those more. But if you're a lover of Vidalia or scallion or red onion, you could always swap. Poblano peppers has a very unique flavor, which I like a lot. So I generally stick with poblano rather than a red, orange, or yellow or green pepper. I find that the colored peppers don't really have a lot of flavor anymore. They're kind of grown just for color. So I would stick to a poblano if you can find them. They're a little bit thinner fleshed, but they have a lot more flavor, probably 200% the flavor of a green pepper. And it's a little bit more umami-ish in style. And when I cut the onions, I kind of go top to bottom. I don't cut coins across. So I don't want to go and slice rounds. I want to go top to bottom following the xylem and phloem of the onion because the structure is so much better. It eats better. The other ones I call, kind of sandwich cuts. I don't want to do that. I want to cut the onion in half, top to bottom, and then I want to slice on that long curve. The quality of the onions comes out much better. So I cook those. I get a fair amount of char on those. Again, really aggressive heat in a pan. I get ready to assemble. The chimichurri sauce is quite simple. You can buy really good chimichurri sauce in the grocery stores. I buy an avocado lime sauce as well. There's great kind of squeeze bottle taco sauces out there. To make chimichurri sauce, you take a bunch of green leafy herbs like parsley, cilantro, maybe even some mint and some scallions. Throw in a garlic clove and some white vinegar and a little bit of olive oil, and you puree that up as smooth as you want, and you've got a chimichurri sauce. You could throw in a jalapeno there, too, if you like it a little zesty.
Wow, the flavor is just, I can't wait. Those are just some fabulous flavors.
Yeah, and it's really fun to buy the small 6-inch taco shells, the soft ones, and you put 2 on there because you're getting more of a street-style taco out of Mexico that way. And it just becomes fun because you can put 3 of those 6-inch tacos on a plate. And when you top them, you're not going to fold them until you're actually ready to eat them. So you've got 3 flat tacos that look like tostadas. And then when you're ready to eat them, you just kind of fold them up. Or if you want, you can buy the taco plate holders that go on top of a plate. They're usually stainless steel or plastic. Those are fun, too. But I just love the casualness of this. And you can do this in advance. I like all the leftovers. I often eat them cold the next day. So don't judge me.
I won't.
We all do it. But it's a lot of flavor, and the cumin is really the thing that drives that kind of Latin flavor. And cumin is such a commonly used spice in ethnic cuisines, and it's so accessible to us. We understand it from chili powder. We understand it from different mediums, but I like it.
I want to just jump ahead here and talk about this margarita, this elderflower margarita that I think would be a really nice beverage to serve with this steak taco.
I just wanted to kind of bring this one to it. It's grilling season, and it's nice to just relax. And this is a really simple, classic margarita that I just wanted to share. And it's got a unique kind of a French twist to it, using the Saint Germain for the elderflower flavor. Not that Saint Germain is a classic liqueur, because it really came on the scene in 2005, but the flavor was one that Americans in particular responded to favorably. So we use it in a lot of things right now, but to make a margarita is really simple. It's 2 ounces of tequila. You could use tequila blanco, or you could use a reposado, which is more of an aged tequila. I like the smoothness of the reposado, But if it's a really hot day, I tend to go towards a Blanco-style tequila because it's a little bit more refreshing. 1.5 ounces of Saint Germain liqueur and 1.5 ounces of fresh lime juice. You put that in a Boston shaker with some ice. You shake that up. You pour it in a rimmed glass with some salt, and you are in business. So that is an absolutely delicious way to go. So the elderflower makes it just a little bit floral and refreshing.
My colleague Monica wanted to know, could she substitute mezcal, or is that too powerful?
Monica can do what she wants. I don't like the flavor of mezcal. I understand it and I appreciate it, but you could certainly influence that. I might do 1 ounce of tequila and 1 ounce of mezcal in that. But I think you would overpower the elderflower. If I wanted to have my pinky out and tell her something, I would say that you're going to overpower the Saint Germain.
That's what we thought.
Yeah, mezcal is such an assertive flavor point. It's almost like putting fish sauce in a sauce that is French in origin. It just doesn't necessarily work in that sense. But, mezcal and lime juice, there you go.
Yeah. Wow. 2 really, really nice summer recipes to share, Chef Curtis. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Chef Curtis Hem owns the Carriage House Cooking School in Peru, New York, in the Champlain Valley, and he's the executive chef at the View Restaurant at the Mirror Lake Inn Resort and Spa in Lake Placid, and he joins us every month. A little later this morning, we'll have the recipe for the grilled steak tacos and the elderflower margarita on our website at ncpr.org. And Monica Sandreski, what do you think?
Yes, my suspicions were confirmed. Mezcal, delicious and wonderful, as smoky as it is, and a margarita. Yes, probably too harsh for that delicate elderflower. Thank you for asking that for me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so good.
27 minutes past 8. And speaking of food, I want to stay on food for just another moment. There's a wild edibles walk today at the Paul Smith's Vic. You can learn to identify wild local edible plants with Pat Banker from Cornell Cooperative Extension. That's from 10 to 12:30 today, a wild edibles walk at the Paul Smith's Vic. There's more information at paulsmithsvic.org. And coming up Friday night, June 9th, this Friday night, the Susquehanna String Band presents Music Over the Marsh at the Paul Smith's Vic. And here's a little sample of their music. The Susquehanna String Band. That's Rick Bunting, Dan Duggan, John Kirk. Music Over the Marsh, the Susquehanna String Band, Friday night, June 9th, starting at 7 at the Paul Smith's Vic. That's Northern Light for this Wednesday, June 7th. Stick around for more news from NPR and Morning Edition.
Yes, coming up in just a couple of minutes, we'll circle back to wildfires and air quality. We'll talk with Peter DiCarlo at Johns Hopkins University about the haze and air quality alerts throughout the U.S. that are generated by all those wildfires in Canada. That's coming up in just a couple of minutes, right at 8:35 here on North Country Public Radio. Keep up with the station throughout the day on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and of course at our website, ncpr.org. Send us an email, news@ncpr.org. I'm Monica Sandreski.
I'm Todd Moe. Be well.